Hello again, everybody. Brian with BMK Retro Gaming, and, well, now we're going to get into one of my other favorite home video game consoles from the second generation, and that would be the IntelliVision. Now, personally, I own a Mattel IntelliVision 2. Sure, well, you guys can see that there, but, this is about what one tends to look like in general. Have the Mattel IntelliVision 2 on the front. Nice little band there. And you have the two controllers, which in its case are actually detachable, though I've never tried taking mine out. And it uses a numeric keypad along with a directional disc and two fire buttons on each side. So very similar to the Mattel IntelliVision 1 in a way, except for it had hardwired controllers, so you couldn't really get away from having to deal with those. If you had to get a controller repaired, you had to send your entire unit in to be repaired, so the removable controllers was actually a big selling point for myself. It does have a few minor drawbacks, though. For instance, without modifications such as removing the chip, I believe it is, which does the lockout, or there may be a software modification that can be done too. I've read about a couple of different methods people have supposedly used and found. It has about 5 Coleco game titles locked out. Otherwise, it plays everything else in its own library and homebrews, everything. It's pretty good. There was also the Sears Video Arcade, which was basically a clone of the Mattel IntelliVision 1 in a way, though also with removable controllers. And later on, after the 1983 industry and market crash for video games, in the US anyway, I think they were mostly Intel employees and programmers who really loved the system and didn't want to just disappear, formed INTV Corp and bought out everything IntelliVision from Mattel, and they kept things going. They even got out what would be called the Mattel INTV IntelliVision 3, which was basically a little bit of a how do you say? It was the Mattel IntelliVision 1 again, though with a little bit sleeker design. There had been a Mattel IntelliVision 3, which Mattel had been planning and working on releasing before the crash in '83, but it all got canceled with that, so never quite got around to that one. Anyway, so there are some drawbacks to owning any one of them. I'd say perhaps the Sears Video Arcade, if you can find one, is quite possibly the best of both worlds. Again, on my Mattel IntelliVision 2 there, it has a number of decent features. For one thing, you have a reset and on and off switch here, which is down. It presses down, up and down, and when you want to turn the console back off, you hold it for about 3 seconds before release, so it's not bad at that. Has basic outputs for inputs, outputs for let's see, here is for power, and this right here is for AV. And that can sometimes be a bit problematic if you, like myself, tend to play most of your stuff on a modern flat screen TV. which anyone who's seen my previous videos on the combat for the Atari VCS 2600 can see that I tend to play on a 40-inch Philips flat screen TV. And so how do you do that? To be honest with you, I do have some old CRT boom tube type TVs. The main one I've got that still works is about, I think, like a 10-inch screen, so I don't really get out for my gaming much unless it's like, say, a light gun game, since those won't work with modern flat screen TVs in most cases. So how do you do that? Well, the Mattel IntelliVision 2 does use the old AV cables. As you guys can see, this would not be compatible on its own with a modern flat screen TV's ability to take input. However, by using one of these, I forget if I'm pronouncing or giving you guys the right name here, but this is supposed to be an AV to coaxial adapter. So if your modern flat screen TV happens to have a coaxial input, such as for say hooking up an antenna or such, then this little baby can be screwed in there, and in order to enable the Mattel IntelliVision 2 or other similar classic gaming consoles, I believe the Atari 7800, an old CIB, Atari VCS 2600, 5200, ColecoVision, Atari 7800, all that stuff. This will allow you to convert them so that you can get in on the basic TV signal, kind of like you would back in the day, channel 3, channel 4. And basically, after you screw this in, the AV cable will simply plug into the other end here, and will enable you to make that transition over to get a good signal. It's quite possibly not the very best way to set up on a modern TV. The signal can be a bit, sometimes it looks a bit jumpy or shaky. Not that you'd notice while playing the games, really. I don't usually. I just look past it. And the image is not as crisp and clear as it could be in some ways, but it does work. So that is one good way to go with that. And here we have the standard power brick for the Mattel IntelliVision 2. I think you guys can probably get a decent look at that. It's a pretty big one, isn't it? Of course, I am well aware that something like the ColecoVision CIB had quite possibly the largest, most monster-sized power brick anybody has ever seen before. And last but not least, I showed you guys this before, which is my Mattel IntelliVision system changer, which allows the playing of Atari VCS 2600 games. Now, as you guys can see, it has a game reset switch, A/B left difficulty switch and right difficulty switch, a black and white selector switch, and a game select switch. And it basically will plug into just into the side of your Mattel IntelliVision 2, like so. And then, when powering them on together, you will get your Atari VCS 2600 games plugged in to power up. So it's a very good, I use it quite commonly to play my Atari VCS 2600 games, which will not, I either cannot emulate or will not play on my BMK Retro 77, which Really, there's only like a handful of games which will not play on it, quite honestly. Maybe a handful of games. We'll get into that one a bit more later on. And I also use it for playing my Atari VCS 2600 homebrew games, which would not play on it. In above 4K game cartridge size, it's kind of hit or miss with that, though I have found some of quite a bit larger to actually work with the Hyperkin Retron 77 in all honesty, but it kind of just depends. Anyway, in our next video, we're going to get around to playing some of this here. Las Vegas Poker and Blackjack for the IntelliVision. This was the original pack-in game. And it's not really a bad game at all. As you guys can probably already guess, much as the Mattel IntelliVision 2 would be connected here at the side, so are regular IntelliVision game discs. The IntelliVision home video game console line consoles were generally what you call, they were interesting in that they were side loaders. Kind of a similar concept to the later third generation Nintendo NES being a front loader, though not quite the same. Okay, I think that'll about do it. So that's our little introduction to the IntelliVision home video game console line, at least what I own of it. And, well, in our next video we'll get down to playing some Las Vegas Poker and Blackjack for the IntelliVision. Again, if you guys happen to like my content at all, go ahead and like, subscribe, share. I'm always open to comments, questions, or suggestions down in the comments section below, so feel free. And also, I might mention that my friend and one of my other favorite YouTubers, Brian Puddin of Brian's Man Cave, is most definitely one of the more knowledgeable people I know about the IntelliVision home video game console line and games, more so than myself for certain, and he is definitely worth checking out. I will leave a link to his channel in our description there, and a link to a Wikipedia article where you guys can, if you want to, read up more on the IntelliVision home video game console line and such, and dive further into it. I'll leave it up to you guys. You guys have a nice evening, and take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.